The silence in Judge Judy's courtroom was deafening as Sean Diddy Combs confidently placed a thick manila folder on the plaintiff's table, his $3,000 suit perfectly pressed, his diamond watch catching the courtroom lights. "Your Honor," his voice carried the authority of a man worth nearly $1 billion, "I have 47 pieces of irrefutable evidence that will prove my case beyond any shadow of doubt." The folder was thick, impressive, filled with receipts, bank statements, contracts, and business documents that his team of 200-per-hour attorneys had meticulously organized. But what Diddy didn't know was that he had just walked into the most devastating 36 seconds of his entire career. You see, those 47 documents weren't just wrong. They were completely fabricated, and Judge Judy was about to expose the most elaborate celebrity fraud scheme ever caught on camera. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. This wasn't just another business dispute. This was a $2.3 million scam that Diddy thought he could pull off using fake receipts, forged signatures, and documents so obviously fraudulent that even a first-year law student could have spotted the problems. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane, and why it's about to become the most talked-about courtroom moment in television history. Diddy had gotten away with similar schemes before. His legal team had successfully used questionable documentation in previous cases, and his wealth and influence had always been enough to intimidate opponents into settling. He walked into that courtroom believing that Judge Judy would be just another judge he could overwhelm with paperwork and celebrity status. He had no idea that Judge Judy had spent 25 years in Manhattan family court, where she'd seen every con artist, every fraudulent document, and every elaborate lie that desperate people could dream up. The moment Judge Judy picked up that first receipt, her expression changed. In that instant, 40 years of legal experience kicked in, and she saw something that would destroy not just Diddy's case, but potentially his entire reputation. What happened in the next 36 seconds wasn't just a legal victory. It was a masterclass in how experience and sharp instincts can demolish even the most carefully planned deception. Diddy thought he was about to win the easiest case of his life. Instead, he was about to face the most humiliating public exposure of his career, caught red-handed in a fraud so obvious that the internet would be talking about it for months. Before we dive into exactly how Judge Judy dismantled one of the most powerful men in entertainment piece by piece, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to this channel, because what you're about to witness is the most satisfying takedown in courtroom television history. This story has everything: celebrity arrogance, fake documents, and a judge who doesn't care how much money you have when you're trying to run a scam in her courtroom. Trust me, you're going to want to see every single second of how this plays out, because the way Judge Judy destroys Diddy's entire case is absolutely brutal and completely brilliant. To understand why what happened next was so devastating, you need to know exactly who these two powerhouses are, and why this collision was always going to be explosive. On one side of the courtroom sat Sean Diddy Combs, a man who had built an empire worth nearly $1 billion through sheer force of will and ruthless business tactics. This wasn't some struggling artist trying to make it big. This was the king of hip-hop business, the man who had transformed from a young intern at Uptown Records into one of the most influential moguls in entertainment history. Diddy had conquered music, fashion, television, and alcohol, turning everything he touched into gold. His Bad Boy Records had launched the careers of Notorious B.I.G., Faith Evans, and Mace. His Sean John clothing line had generated hundreds of millions in revenue. His Ciroc vodka partnership had made him one of the highest-paid celebrities on the planet. But here's what made Diddy so dangerous in business dealings: he was obsessed with documentation. His legal team was legendary for creating paper trails that seemed absolutely bulletproof. Every business deal, every partnership, every contract was backed up with receipts, emails, bank statements, and witness testimonies that could fill entire filing cabinets. Diddy's attorneys were some of the most expensive in New York, charging $200 per hour and specializing in complex entertainment law. They had gotten him out of countless legal situations over the years, using their meticulous documentation and aggressive tactics to overwhelm opponents into submission. The man sitting across from Judge Judy wasn't just rich, he was smart, prepared, and had never lost a case where he felt the evidence was on his side. On the other side of that courtroom bench sat Judge Judy Schindlin, and if Diddy had done his homework, he would have known that he was walking into a trap. This wasn't some celebrity-friendly judge who would be impressed by fame and fortune. This was a woman who had spent 25 years in Manhattan family court, dealing with the worst liars, the most creative con artists, and the most elaborate fraud schemes that desperate people could invent. Judge Judy had seen teenage mothers lying about paternity, deadbeat fathers forging employment records, and scam artists creating fake businesses to avoid child support payments. She had developed an almost supernatural ability to spot lies, inconsistencies, and fraudulent documents within seconds of examining them. What made Judge Judy particularly lethal was her background before becoming a television personality. She wasn't just a TV judge playing a role for entertainment. She was a real judge who had handled over 20,000 cases in her career, making split-second decisions that affected real families and real lives. Her reputation in the legal community was built on being absolutely impossible to fool. Attorneys who appeared in her court knew that bringing fake evidence wasn't just risky, it was professional suicide. She had an encyclopedic knowledge of how businesses operated, how banks processed transactions, and how legitimate documentation was supposed to look. More importantly, she had zero tolerance for people who thought their wealth or status gave them permission to lie under oath. The case that brought these two forces together seemed straightforward on the surface. Diddy was suing a former business partner for $2.3 million, claiming breach of contract over a failed nightclub venture in Miami. According to Diddy's legal team, they had entered into a partnership agreement to open an upscale entertainment venue, but their partner had pulled out at the last minute, leaving Diddy holding the bag for construction costs, licensing fees, and lost revenue. It was the kind of business dispute that happened every day in entertainment. The kind of case where having better documentation usually meant winning. But here's where the story gets interesting, and why this case ended up in Judge Judy's courtroom instead of federal court where it belonged. Diddy's legal team had convinced him that Judge Judy would be an easy target, someone who would be impressed by his celebrity status and overwhelmed by his documentation. They had watched her show and concluded that she handled simple landlord-tenant disputes and small claims cases, not complex business litigation. They thought they could steamroll her with their 47 pieces of evidence and walk away with a quick victory that would send a message to anyone thinking about challenging Diddy in court. What they didn't realize was that Judge Judy had specifically requested this case because something about the initial filings had caught her attention. The documentation looked too perfect, too comprehensive, too convenient. In her experience, real business deals were messy, with missing paperwork, conflicting emails, and gaps in the timeline. But Diddy's case file read like a textbook example of a business partnership, with every document supporting his version of events and zero contradictions anywhere in the record. To Judge Judy's trained eye, it looked exactly like what a fraud would look like if someone had unlimited resources to create fake evidence. The stage was set for what would become the most one-sided legal destruction in television history. Diddy walked in expecting to intimidate a television judge with his wealth and influence. Instead, he was about to face someone who had built her entire career on destroying exactly this kind of arrogance. The confidence radiating from Diddy's legal team was almost palpable as they began presenting their case. Lead attorney Marcus Williams, a Harvard Law graduate who charged more per hour than most people made in a month, stood up with the kind of swagger that only comes from believing you're about to deliver a knockout punch. "Your Honor," he began, gesturing toward the thick folder of documents. "What we have here is the most comprehensive documentation of a business partnership dispute you'll ever see in this courtroom." The folder wasn't just thick, it was organized with military precision. Each document was tabbed, categorized, and cross-referenced. There were original receipts for construction materials dating back 18 months, detailed email chains showing negotiations between the parties, bank statements proving Diddy's financial contributions to the project, and signed contracts with suppliers who had been hired for the nightclub renovation. Diddy himself looked completely relaxed, almost bored, as if this whole proceeding was just a formality before he collected his $2.3 million. He leaned back in his chair, occasionally nodding with approval as his attorney presented each piece of evidence, the picture of a man who knew he had an airtight case. Every few minutes he would whisper something to his legal team, pointing at specific documents with the confidence of someone who had personally overseen their creation. This wasn't nervous energy. This was the calm assurance of a man who believed he had thought of everything. His second attorney, Jennifer Chen, a specialist in entertainment law, began walking Judge Judy through the timeline of events, using the documents to paint a picture of Diddy as the victim of a business partner's betrayal. The evidence seemed overwhelming. There were receipts for everything. A $47,000 payment to a Miami construction company, $23,000 in architectural fees, $18,000 for sound system installation, and dozens of smaller payments for permits, licenses, and equipment. Each receipt was accompanied by corresponding bank statements, showing the money leaving Diddy's accounts on the exact dates specified. The email chains showed months of planning, with Diddy's business partner expressing enthusiasm for the project and making promises about his own financial contributions that apparently never materialized. There were signed contracts with vendors, insurance policies purchased specifically for the nightclub, and even receipts for promotional materials that had already been printed. Judge Judy sat silently during this presentation, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp and focused. She occasionally picked up documents to examine them more closely, but she didn't interrupt or ask questions. To Diddy's team, her silence looked like someone who was impressed by the thoroughness of their preparation. What they didn't realize was that Judge Judy was conducting her own examination, looking for the kinds of inconsistencies and red flags that her decades of experience had taught her to spot. The opposing counsel looked increasingly nervous as the presentation continued. How could they possibly counter such comprehensive documentation? Their client, a small-time Miami businessman, had brought only a handful of documents to defend himself against Diddy's mountain of evidence. Everything seemed to be going exactly according to Diddy's plan, until Judge Judy reached for the first receipt and everything began to unravel in the most spectacular way possible. Judge Judy picked up the first receipt with the casual motion of someone examining a grocery list, but her eyes immediately locked onto something that made her expression shift from neutral to laser-focused. The courtroom was completely silent as she held the document up to the light, examining it with the intensity of a detective who had just found the smoking gun. Mr. Combs, her voice cut through the silence like a blade. This receipt is dated March 15, 2023, for construction work at 1247 Ocean Drive in Miami. Diddy nodded confidently, completely unaware that he was about to walk into a trap that would destroy his entire case. The problem is, Judge Judy continued, her voice taking on that deadly calm tone that regular viewers knew meant someone was about to get demolished. This construction company didn't exist until June of 2023. I know this because I looked it up during your attorney's presentation. The color began draining from Diddy's face as the implications hit him, but Judge Judy wasn't finished. She set down the first receipt and picked up a bank statement, her movements deliberate and predatory. And this bank statement showing your $47,000 deposit? It's dated Sunday, April 2nd, 2023. But Chase Bank doesn't process business transactions on Sundays. Mr. Combs, they never have. Diddy opened his mouth to speak, his usual smooth confidence replaced by the stammering panic of someone watching their world collapse in real time. Your Honor, there must be some mistake. My team verified every single document. But Judge Judy held up her hand, silencing him with a gesture that had intimidated thousands of liars before him. Oh, we're just getting started, she said, picking up a third document with the enthusiasm of someone who knew they were about to deliver the finishing blow. This email chain between you and your business partner, the metadata shows it was created last week, not 18 months ago like you claim. And this architectural firm that supposedly charged you $23,000, they've been out of business since 2021. Each revelation hit like a physical blow, and Diddy's legal team was frantically shuffling through papers, trying to figure out how their bulletproof case had turned into quicksand beneath their feet. The courtroom was dead silent except for the sound of papers rustling and Diddy's increasingly desperate breathing. Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes boring into Diddy with the intensity of someone who had just caught a con artist red-handed. Mr. Combs, these aren't just incorrect documents. These are fabricated documents, all 47 of them. Did you really think you could walk into my courtroom with fake receipts and fool someone who's been doing this for 40 years? What happened next was like watching a controlled demolition in slow motion. Judge Judy didn't just expose one or two fake documents. She systematically destroyed every single piece of evidence that Diddy's team had spent months creating. With the precision of a forensic accountant and the relentless energy of a prosecutor who smelled blood in the water, she began pulling apart the elaborate fraud piece by piece. Let's examine receipt number 12, she said, her voice carrying the deadly calm of someone who was enjoying every second of this destruction. This one claims you paid $15,000 to Miami Sound Solutions for audio equipment installation, but according to their business registration, Miami Sound Solutions has never installed audio equipment. They're a hearing aid company that serves senior citizens. Diddy's lead attorney tried desperately to salvage the situation, jumping to his feet with objections about irrelevant details and procedural irregularities. But Judge Judy shut him down with a look that could have frozen lava. Sit down, counselor. Your client brought these documents to my courtroom, so we're going to examine every single one of them. She picked up another receipt, this one supposedly from a Miami electrical contractor. This receipt shows work completed on February 30th, 2023. Mr. Combs, February only has 28 days. Did your contractor invent an extra day just for you? The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs as the full scope of the fraud became clear. This wasn't a case of sloppy record-keeping or minor inconsistencies. This was a comprehensive attempt to create an entire false business history, using documents that hadn't even been competently forged. Judge Judy continued her methodical destruction, pointing out font inconsistencies where the same document appeared to have been created using different software programs, impossible timestamps showing emails sent before the sender's email account existed, and bank routing numbers that didn't correspond to any actual financial institutions. Diddy himself had gone completely silent, his earlier confidence replaced by the shell-shocked expression of someone watching their reputation crumble in real time. His expensive suit suddenly looked like a costume, his diamond jewelry seemed gaudy rather than impressive, and his usual commanding presence had shrunk to that of a child caught in an obvious lie. Every few seconds he would lean over to whisper urgently with his attorneys, but their increasingly frantic gestures made it clear that they had no strategy for dealing with this level of exposure. And this contract, Judge Judy continued, clearly enjoying herself now. Supposedly signed by your business partner on March 1, 2023, the signature doesn't match any of the other signatures in your file. The legal language is copied word for word from a template I can find on Google, and the notary stamp belongs to someone who retired in 2019. With each revelation, the case didn't just weaken, it became more obviously fraudulent. This wasn't a failed business partnership. It was an elaborate attempt to steal $2.3 million using fake documentation, and Judge Judy was dismantling it with the surgical precision of someone who had seen every con game ever invented. The most devastating part wasn't just that the documents were fake. It was how obviously fake they were once someone with real expertise examined them. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair with the satisfaction of someone who had just completed a masterpiece of legal destruction and delivered her final verdict with the kind of authority that comes from 4 decades of crushing fraudsters. Mr. Combs, in 40 years of practicing law, I have never seen such an obvious, comprehensive attempt to defraud a court with fabricated evidence. Not only are you not getting $2.3 million, but I'm recommending that the district attorney's office investigate you for perjury, fraud, and attempted theft. The words hit Diddy like physical blows, and for the first time in his billionaire career, he was completely speechless. His legal team was frantically packing up their fake documents, trying to escape the courtroom before Judge Judy could inflict any more damage on their client's reputation. But the real destruction was just beginning. Within 30 minutes of the hearing ending, TMZ had broken the story with the headline, "Diddy caught with 47 fake receipts in Judge Judy fraud scandal." The footage of Diddy's face as Judge Judy exposed each fake document spread across social media like wildfire. Twitter exploded with hashtags like #FakeReceiptDiddy and #JudgeJudyDestroysDiddy, with the original clip getting over 2 million views in the first hour. TikTok users created reaction videos, memes, and remixes of Judge Judy saying, "February only has 28 days. Mr. Combs," that went viral faster than anyone could track. The entertainment world was absolutely stunned. This wasn't just a celebrity losing a court case. This was one of the most powerful men in hip-hop being exposed as someone who would create dozens of fake documents to steal money from a small businessman. Legal experts appeared on every news network to explain the implications. CNN's legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin called it the most obvious case of documentary fraud I've ever seen attempted in a courtroom. MSNBC ran a special segment breaking down each fake document and explaining how Judge Judy spotted the obvious forgeries that Diddy's expensive lawyers had somehow missed. The business implications were immediate and devastating. 3 major brands that had endorsement deals with Diddy announced they were reviewing their partnerships within 24 hours. His Ciroc vodka deal, worth an estimated $60 million annually, was reportedly under serious reconsideration by Diageo executives who were horrified by the fraud revelations. The SEC announced they would be reviewing all of Diddy's business filings to determine if this pattern of creating fake documentation extended to his publicly traded investments, but perhaps the most brutal aftermath was the complete destruction of Diddy's reputation for business acumen. This was a man who had built his entire brand on being smarter, more prepared, and more ruthless than his competitors. The revelation that he would try to steal money using documents so obviously fake that they included impossible dates and non-existent businesses made him look not just dishonest, but incompetent. Hip-hop blogs, business publications, and entertainment news shows all ran stories, questioning how someone supposedly worth nearly $1 billion could be caught in such an amateur-level fraud scheme. If you're enjoying watching one of the most powerful men in entertainment get completely destroyed by Judge Judy's detective skills, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting to the most important lesson from this entire disaster. The most incredible part of this entire story isn't just that Diddy got caught trying to run a $2.3 million scam with fake receipts. It's what this reveals about the difference between real expertise and manufactured confidence. Judge Judy didn't need a team of investigators, expensive consultants, or months of preparation to destroy Diddy's elaborate fraud. She needed exactly 36 seconds and 4 decades of experience, dealing with people who thought they were smarter than the system. While Diddy and his 200 per hour attorneys were busy creating fake construction companies and impossible bank statements, Judge Judy was using the kind of street-smart legal knowledge that you can't buy with all the money in the world. This case perfectly demonstrates that in the courtroom of life, authenticity will always defeat deception, no matter how much money you throw at the lie. Diddy thought his billion-dollar empire gave him the right to steal from a small businessman using forged documents, but he learned the hard way that real expertise can't be intimidated by celebrity status or overwhelmed by expensive lawyers. Judge Judy's ability to spot obvious fraud in seconds came from decades of dealing with real cases, real people, and real problems, not from sitting in boardrooms making deals with other wealthy people who are all playing the same games. The lesson here goes far beyond just this one embarrassing court case. It's about the difference between building something real and just putting on an expensive show. Diddy's fake receipts with impossible dates and non-existent companies represent everything wrong with people who think rules don't apply to them because of their wealth and influence. Judge Judy's instant destruction of his fraud represents the power of genuine knowledge, real experience, and the kind of wisdom that comes from actually doing the work instead of just talking about it. This story proves that truth always comes out, especially when you're dealing with someone who's seen it all before. If you want to see more incredible moments where the powerful get humbled by people who actually know what they're doing, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. What did you think of Judge Judy's 36-second takedown of Diddy's fake receipt scam? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to share this with anyone who needs to see what happens when you try to fool a legend. Remember, in the courtroom of life, always bring real receipts because fake ones will get you destroyed every single time, no matter how much money you have.